Ready?
Yes.
Okay, it's recording.
My name's Jim Meekins. I'm the son of Mary L. Meekins Reynolds. My father was James Ransom of East Riverton, New Jersey. My mother was originally from, New Kent County in Virginia. My mother came here at 3 years old. When my mother first came here, I almost cried, man. When my mother first come here, it was Aunt Fee, Aunt Bernice, and my mother. And my mother used to talk about how she come here, and Aunt Fee used to tell her, and Aunt Bernice, keep quiet, Mary Lucy. They always called her by her full name. Keep quiet, Mary Lucy. You wasn't but 3 years old when we came here to Morristown. When they came to Morristown, my mother and Aunt Fee and Aunt Bernice, they lived on Beach Street in Morristown, New Jersey. And from there, it was my grandmother. I'm telling you the history that my mother had told me. It was my grandmother, my grandfather, grandmother, Aunt Fee, Aunt Bernice, and my mother. They lived in on Beach Street, and the rest of the young family that know anything about it that lived on Beach Street after they came on this earth, they lived in Mr. Cannon's house. And Mrs. Cannon's house next to Mr. Jim Stewart. Mr. Jim Stewart, I used to ask my mother a lot of questions. When my grandfather came up from Virginia, most people that lived on Beach Street were from Virginia. People like Mr. Butler and Mr. Jim Stewart helped my grandfather find a place, and they found it on Beach Street, which was right next to Mr. Stewart's home. And then, I wasn't born, but my mother told me all this history, and my aunts and them. Especially my mother. She was always telling me about the Meekins family and history. All the time. Just preached it in my head. Then when I was born, we was on Locust Street. If any of the kids and people from Morristown and was born in Morristown, the cousins stuff, right across the street from Linda. And we lived across the street from a lady named Miss DeBias. But we lived right there on Locust Street. And when I was born and got up to be 1, 2, and 3, and I guess I couldn't be no more than 4. Jean lived with us for a while, and we all lived there like a family. It was I'll see if I can count them. It was my grandfather and grandmother, who my grandfather was very strict. He didn't play. Even when you was a baby, he didn't play. My grandfather, my grandmother, on Locust Street, if I remember, Aunt Fee lived down the street then at that time, because Jean stayed there with us. Grandmom used to babysit she babysit for all of us, the kids that were here on Earth at that time. Let me get my aunts together. It was after my mom. It was Uncle Ose, Junie Meeks and Diane's father. Them boys were spoiled in the Meekins family. Then it was Uncle. No, wait a minute. Gotta hit myself. It was Uncle Ose, Aunt Dit, who was really named Martha. And then it was Aunt Minnie. Then it was Aunt. Wait a minute. Now hold on. I gotta get it together. It was Uncle Ose. Excuse me for repeating myself. Uncle Ose. Martha, Aunt Minnie, Uncle Bud, Aunt Alice, and Bunny. We all lived there in the house together. And I wasn't nothing but a baby in a tot. And my grandmother, me and Jean, Lord have mercy. Me and Jean was spoiled up to the key. And Bunny. Bunny was spoiled by everybody. But we was all, let's face it, All them boys in the Meekins family that time was spoiled. You might didn't want to own up to it, but you was spoiled. That's the way it was in the Meekins family. Them older ones were small too. Oh shucks. And then by those sisters, those older sisters. And me and Gene was really spoiled. Oh man. Gene used to come over there and be babysitting. And I can still remember this time my grandmom said, boy, get sweet things, she used to call. Get in here. When your mom was coming home from work, they get there, and I tell the people that now, man, you got to go in there and get washed up. You couldn't get handed back to your mom dirty and stuff. But I lived there, but Gene was going on. Aunt Fee was going to pick Gene up. Aunt Fee used to come through there about 3:30, quarter to 4. And then when I see Uncle Hen come through there, I'll be out there riding my tricycle. Gene always used to make me get on the back of my own tricycle. And when I see Aunt Fee come in there and say, Jimmy, what you doing? I was back there, boy. I used to tell people that the Marine Corps. I'll be looking over across that street to Mr. Bias. Boy, that woman was pretty. I knew that at 2 and 3. Lord have mercy, mercy, mercy. She was pretty. So Aunt Fee said, Jimmy, what you looking at? I said, oh, Mr. Bias, Mr. Bias. So when she go in there and get Gene, and I'm going to get back to the family. When she go in there and get Gene, and Uncle Hen come through, I know that was my time to duff on my tricycle. I'd go down there and visit everybody in the neighborhood, and the neighborhood was very close at that time. Boy, everywhere you go, your grandmother know you down here. Oh man, I go around and see Miss Gertie Williams, Mrs. Eldridge, Aunt Bernice lived down there. I'd be ducking, and then I'd go over across the street. Mr. Preston, you have to remember, I wasn't number a kid, a tot. I'd go over there and Mr. Preston tell me, come on in. He was always reading the paper. I couldn't even read at that time. I was a baby, a kid. And I say to Mr. Preston, why are you always reading that paper? He'd always tell me he was reading it because he was between 90 and 100. I used to could remember all this stuff, but it's fading now and I'm getting old. And he said, Jimmy, always remember when you learn how to, his daughter was a school teacher. He said, always remember to learn how to read because if they're going to send the Negroes back to Africa as slaves, he used to tell me that every day. That's why it stayed in my mind. He said they're going to put it in the back page, back by the groceries where ain't going to be no obituary come. I'm there listening to this as a kid, 3 and 4 years old. What's he talking about? And I stayed there and listened so intense. And he said, he'd get to halfway through, he said, Jimmy. I said, yes. Your mother, father, grandfather, and all them know you down here. I wouldn't answer him. He said, oh, Jimmy, one thing about you, don't lie. I wouldn't answer him. And then he finished telling me they're going to put it back on the page where we can't see it because they know black folks, Negroes at that time we were, don't read the paper too. And I was like, wow, daggone. So then Mrs. Williams, which was his daughter, taught school. She graduated from Hampton when she was 14 years old. In the black family, they always was proud to tell you that stuff. They wasn't bragging and stuff. At least I didn't know it was bragging then. But it was always to tell you something. And she used to look out for me. And several times he took the freight train used to go by their house, moving, and sometimes be slow in the troop train. A lot of you people don't know what the troop trains was. That's bringing guys out of Fort Dix, and during the Second World War, bringing guys out of Fort Dix, and those Germans into Fort Dix. And I try to tell the family and people, even when I was in the Marine Corps, they don't know nothing about racism and stuff. They let them Germans have more respect bringing them here in the United States than they did black folks. They were stationed up in Fort Dix and around Wrightstown and all that. They had more freedom and they supposed to be in prison than we did. So anyway, he took me there to show me don't cross that railroad tracks. Like I tell you, I was between 3 and 4. He'd say, Jimmy, don't you cross the river. And he'd take me and hold my hand, let me hear how fast that train was coming. But I would never go any further anyway, because I was scared you're going to get told on at that young age. Past Mrs. Eldridge's house, which was Aunt Fee's sister-in-law. My Aunt Ophelia's sister-in-law. Then I go back, oh no, before I get back on the other side, because I leave my bicycle, the jeans in them, so I could sneak across there even at that age. And then I'd go and make my rounds as a young boy. I guess that's why I'm like that now. I go make my rounds, so Mrs. Williams would ask me, did I go across this, did I go next door to see her sister, Mrs. Ransom, had the same name as my father did. I used to ask me anything to my father because I knew who my father was. A lot of kids didn't. I said, yeah, I've always been a question asker, want to know information and knowledge. Some people used to call me a little nosy thing, but I was always, because my mother and all them taught me it all, and black men in the neighborhood ask questions and understand and know. So I'd go across there and talk to her, Mrs. Press Ransom, who had went in the Marine Corps. I'd go in there and talk to his mother and father. And Mr. You know, black people worked hard, and Mr. Ransom be out in the yard, Jimmy, because he knew, them people knew who my father was, shucks. And they said, how's your dad? How's this? How's that? How's this? I said, I guess I was a little kid. I don't know, you know. He didn't live in that house with us. I don't know. So then he said, you want to go upstairs? She was sickly. See Miss Ransom. And I tell people things now, and when I was in my teens and young guy in the Marine Corps, that's where I spent the rest of my life, I would tell them that she would show me, when I was coming up, black people was always educating black kids and telling them things. Nothing on that street stuff or neighborly gossip. She said, Jimmy, you want to see my gallbladders? And I told people that, and then one of my aunts had to come up from me and said, she does show them. She had them in a glass. I didn't even know, in a jar. She saved them all. Some of them look like coal, some of them look like rocks. I'm like, woo! But they in my neighborhood, they was always educating you about something. Then I leave them, and I go to a white family, oh shucks. They had strawberries, and then they give me Mr. McDivitt's, Aunt Fee and them probably, and Aunt Alice is still living, can remember. And Mr. McDivitt would give me them pints and quarts of strawberries to take to Grandma. Grandma had a very quiet and good, excuse me for rubbing my face, good rapport with people. And I say now, I said I get that kindness from my father, my mother, and my father's sisters and brothers, and my grandma, and my aunts. My aunt's boy was so loving, man, to me. Oh, man. And that's where I get it. And they would say, and I wouldn't lie, Jimmy, your grandmother don't know you down here. Everybody in the neighborhood, boy. And then I said, when I get by Miss Eldridge, my Aunt Fee's sister, boy, I book. Because she would say, Jimmy, they've been calling for you and calling for you. Hear you all over the neighborhood. I wasn't nothing but a tot. And I'd go, Aunt Fee, not Aunt Fee, and all them sisters lived on the same street to her. Aunt Fee and Aunt Bernice lived on the street. Boy, when I get by Aunt Bernice and Aunt Fee, I'd be flying on my tricycle. I'd be pedaling so fast because they told me so much. My grandma, my mom be working. My grandmom and my aunts be looking for me. But when I got to Mrs. Eldridge, Uncle Fee's sister, Jimmy, do they know you now? I wouldn't lie, boy. I said, I get the stutter. Boy, I pick up my bicycle, and Aunt Bernice and Billy was born, and Merle was 2. Man, I get to flying. Sometimes Merle and Billy say something, man, I can't stop. And they get home, and my grandmama asks me where I be, you get washed up and all that. And sometimes my grandfather be home. Where you been, boy? I said, oh, sure. He was in authority. Woo-wee. And everybody was in charge of you. Even Bunny, young as he was in charge. I remember Gene. Oh, shucks. Me and Gene be on one. Grandma would always have me and Gene with her. And we, oh, it's still funny. But you don't know what the devil's going on. She would make Bunny get in the back. Oh, that boy was spoiled. So was me and Gene, ain't you some lying about. She'd make Bunny get in the back and hold on to the back in the back, and me and Gene be on either side. And Gene be on the left side. If I got on the right side, Gene raised my saying is Bunny, because I was younger than mother. Now you belong over there. My grandma tell him leave me alone. So she be out there singing spirituals and washing on the ironing board. A wash on in a tub. But that me and Gene was spoiled, man. Even Bunny spoiled us. And like I tell you, Uncle O's, I'm going backwards, or head frontwards, I'm going to get them all in. Uncle O's, Uncle Bud, Bunny, Aunt Alice, and Minnie, and Dick, and my mom, we all lived there. And then at night, I remember one time my grandfather, me and Gene, since we was grown, Gene, my friend, my buddy, my close friend in life, my loving friend, I almost cry when I talk about Gene. Gene and I was on there, and we used to talk and whisper, kids. Granddaddy told because the train, I told you the tracks was up there. Granddaddy told Grandma, I'm losing a lot of it, I can still, don't be feeding them bums. But as a kid, I didn't know he was saying because they keep coming around. My grandma told him, said, oh, shuck. But boy, she was kind. She said, she told him, and then she said it after he left. She said, I'm going to keep on feeding them. I may not let them in the house. But she said, she was a real religious woman. She said, you don't know, my goodness. Now I'm older. But I used to hear when I was young, you don't know if it's Jesus Christ in disguise. Yes, I'm going to feed him. And me and Gene went, what you talking about? Jesus coming. Look, oh man, and me and Gene used to look at her. But I know me and Gene would talk about it sometime, but Gene would always tell me, Jimmy, even when we was growing, we'd be down South Carolina together, wherever. Jimmy, I can't remember all that stuff you remember. And Billy used to tell me, Jimmy, oh, you remember that stuff. So when we go in the house, Granddaddy used to roast peanuts, and he'd call you boy. Oh, man. And me and Billy was talking about it before Billy passed. That was a powerful man to us as kids. I remember one time I told him I was going to tell my mother on it. He said, I'll whip your mother's butt. I said, oh, shucks, this bad dude here. As your child, oh, man, he was rough. Then he said, boy, you want some peanuts? He sat there and smoked his corncob pipe and roast peanuts on the top of the stove. And during that time, you know, segregation, not so much in Morristown, but it was still segregated, was prevalent. And I couldn't understand as a kid, man, if it's so messed up, how come these white guys always in the house? And they used to, Irish Americans they were, and the chief of police. Now somebody don't want me telling this up there in Jersey. The chief of police and my granddad be getting drunk together. And I remember as a kid, the chief of police pull up in their yard. You could pull up in that yard in Locust Street, because that's where granddad used to kill the hogs and stuff. The chief of police and me as a kid wonder, what the heck's going on here? The chief of the police and granddad be both stumbling. I'm serious. So he come in and get him, my granddaddy. I said, I didn't know until later in my granddaddy be making that. Granddaddy from Virginia, down there in New Kent. Granddaddy be making that dandelion wine. Bottles and gallons and gallons. Not to sell like bootlegger in the cellar. Them cats be coming by to get it. And I asked Aunt Fee about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe longer than that. I said, Aunt Fee, and she remembered that stuff. I said, who was them Irish American guys? Used to always be over there with Granddad. When we moved to Mount Laura, they came out there. And they would say, hey, Mickey, I know that your original name was not a Meekins. I know it was Mac Meekins. And I know you're a black Irishman from Ireland. But I know one thing, Mickey. I know one thing. You might change your name when you got down in Virginia. But you know they had black Irishmen coming from Ireland. But I know one thing about you, Mickey. You can no do the Irish jig. And I didn't say a thing about it because she see the two. Man, them two brothers, one playing the flute, and they get up there and get on their tippy toes. That's the first time I ever seen, because I was nothing but a kid. A man get on his tippy toes. I told you, Meekin, and that wine getting better and better to him. I told you, Meekin, you're a great Irishman, but you know can do the Irish jig. And I had asked Aunt Fee about, Aunt Fee, what was them guys' name? I can't remember them today, but Aunt Fee told me. I said, dang, Aunt Fee, you can remember better than me. She told me, Jimmy, you sure all right, though. And then them Irish guys, Mr. Madden. Hey, Jimmy, when I got older, don't you get, I was going to hit a white boy in the head with a brick. Hey, Jimmy, don't mess yourself up. You know, your grandfather and grandmother and your mother taught you better than that. Go ahead, we'll take care of them. And then one time, I had a lot of, when I got older, I had a lot of responsibility for a young boy. And Mom couldn't afford coal all the time, so I get to get bag of coal, and I had to pull, I guess about 6 or 7, I had to pull them in my wagon. And then, I'm laughing because I take the sledgehammer. When the freight trains come in there with the coal, oh shucks, me and that G, oh shucks, and knock the coal where some of it would come out and put it in my wagon. I might have to pull, man, sometimes 3 and 4, hoping didn't get caught too. 3 and 4, and then the kindling, you know the slaps that go across lumber? They put them in the thing, man. It was stealing, honestly. To help my mother. My mother was my pride and joy, boy. So I'd go in and get this, them chips and stuff. One time Bradshaw, the chief of police, come and called us. Oh, Lord. So he said, what's your name? Billy start running. I said, Billy, don't run, don't run, don't run, Billy, don't run. I said, man, that cat might shoot you, don't run. So he said, ask Billy, what's your name? Billy was nervous. Billy said, Billy Fortune. Then he said to me, you look like one of them Meekins. Billy did too, because we all look alike, people used to say. So he said, what's your name? I said, Jimmy Meekins. You in the relation to, Granddaddy was still living there. But he was sickly. You in the relation to Bell Meekins? I said, that's my grandfather. Hold up here a minute. He backed the car up and got out of the car. Told me put the, oh, shucks, the kindling in the back of the car. And he told me, he said, you can't lift that wagon. He put the coal that was in the thing in the back of the window and gave me and Billy a ride home right to Beach Street. Huh? Billy was up there visiting. And he asked me how my grandfather was. Before my grandfather got sick, they'd be up there drinking with him on Beach Street. And I'm telling you what, I'm telling you all the things. So he wasn't no Uncle Tom. He was a rough man. He demanded respect from all of them. And then because he had a, the people in Morristown would know, out there in Livincott, at the end of Livincott, that was all farmland before they start building those lovely luxury homes. And that's where Granddaddy had his farm, and he had a cart where he delivered him and Mr. Baylor were friends. Both of them had carts and they sold vegetables, and that's where Granddaddy had his hogs too, because we used to tell my mom and Aunt Fee when I got older and went in the Marine Corps, Granddaddy couldn't have his hogs out there now. All them rich Caucasians out there. But anyway, then we moved. My grandmom and them had lost the house during the Depression. My grandma worked for Mr. Rogers, who owned the bank. And people didn't know Morristown was a Quaker town. And most people would only call you the N-word. It was them poor whites that lived on 3rd Street and 3rd Street, 2nd Street, and way down 2nd. But a lot of people didn't know the history. Somebody, when I was up there not too long ago, was trying to tell me something about, a young lady was trying to tell me something about somebody, and I said, I know them. I said, they were poor Italians. They're getting it together now. The kids coming behind them. So I asked her, she said that they said they lived in Lenola. I said, do you know why they put them in Lenola? She didn't know. I said, well, you're running off the mouth like you know history. They put Italians in Lanola, and they put blacks in Morristown because when they would come there, because they wanted the blacks for the domestic and the black men for chauffeurs. And I didn't know this till I started getting older. And I don't mean at the age I'm in now. I'm late 70s and almost 80. What am I? About 11 months from 80. So I was trying to tell her something. And she said something about the Italian guy. I said, don't tell me that I'm a pretty brown skinned thing. They always like black women. She got here talking stuff to me. But they put the Italians in Lanola because they did all the stonework. And it was more important to have their food cooked and chauffeured, so they put the Negroes closer in. And that's why so many Italians they didn't even know their own history. That's why they got in Lanola, because of that. And most people did domestic work until they got better jobs. Even them well-educated blacks in Morristown. Now, they had some well-educated. I'm not trying to be funny. They had Dr. Ashers. They had Mr. Anderson, Mr. Walker, Mr. Walker's brother who marched with King, T.Y. Walker. They were all from Morristown. And Mr. Walker run the cleaner. And then their other brother was an undertaker. Then you had Miss Jenkins, who was a school teacher. And Mrs. Jenkins' mother worked for the Cane Sugar, The Cane Sugar is right now. And they used to take her down to Cuba with them. They were rich. And when she would come back, she would bring the sugar cane. In those days, black people that had power with other people would always look out for kids and people in the community. Wasn't busting us upside the head and smoking that crack and smoking that shooting up and all that stuff. And she used to and then she'd bring it to school. I guess I was about 2nd grade, 3rd grade. She'd bring it to school and the RCA Victor guy, he was a racist, but I went to school when them lower grades were integrated. She sat right next to me. She got Scholar Theater and died. A lot of people don't know history, and we couldn't even go to the swimming pool at that time. Well, anyway, they kept us across the track, but they wasn't bad across the track. And you had the number writers and everything. And I used to wonder why they'd be having prayer meetings. Because that time we was living in Mount Laurel. I got ahead of myself. We was living in Mount Laurel when Grandmom and them lost the house. Our granddaddy lived there, Aunt Minnie, Aunt Alice. We lived with Aunt Bernice and Merle and them. I think it was only Billy and Merle. Billy and I was talking about it for my mom before he passed. Me and Jean, and they used to cut me and Jean's hair. And I used to tell my mother, he told me, boy, I shut up too, man. I ain't never forgot that. He said, I'll whip your mom's butt. I said, oh, this is a bad dude here. And he slapped you upside the head. Me and Billy was talking back up. And Billy said, Jimmy, me and Jean man, them clippers hurt head. Doesn't that look like, well, you don't know as a kid. Didn't know that them pinchers, whoa, boy, ain't be pulling. Oh, shucks. But you better not say nothing. Because if I was before Billy or Jean or they was before me, he'd slap them upside the head. Pop, not knock your head around or nothing like that. And then you had chores. Me and Billy was talking about that too. Aunt Minnie's chore was to go down to the spring and get the water when we lived in Mount Laurel. That very luxurious Mount Laurel where they have all the hotels and so much land now. And he said, Aunt Alice always had a lot of mouth. And he said, go down there with Aunt Minnie and get the spring water. Aunt Minnie was scared to death of them snake sharks. I was a kid. I was just scared to see what. I hear her holler, I'm ready to put. But you better bring that water back there. And then on the side of the house, we had a rain barrel. Was treated, the water dripping there. Then when you come back, Billy had to go too when you come back. I learned all this as a kid. When you come back, you go down, where you going down the well for? We just got water. But they kept the milk and stuff in the well to keep it cool. What I know as a kid. And we come back and get that stuff together. Now all of us lived in that house. Now Billy remembered and I remember, all of us lived in there. And Aunt Al, she always had a lot of mouth. And then Granddaddy told her one time, no, oh shucks. She would never listen. Granddaddy told her one time, don't get too close to the stove. Them old type iron curling irons you had to put in the heat. We didn't have nothing but stove. Wood most of the time because you didn't have no money to buy no coal. Boy, she got too close and got to howling and screaming. Granddaddy said, I told, boy, he had a voice on it. Well, she was always something. I told you not to get too close to that stove. Had to put her out, put around her hair and put it out. And then when my mom come home, Aunt Alice would go out, we lived up on a hill. Aunt Alice with Mr. Sharp, Aunt Fee and them will remember Mr. Sharp. Or Gene the past, a lot of people, Aunt Alice and Gene will know who Mr. Sharp. He had an old raggedy car. And that thing used to go clank, 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 clank. And I used to mark it. I used to get out there on the hill when it's time for my mother to come home from work. And Aunt Alice teach me about that there. Clank, 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 here come my mommy. Clank, 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 here come my mommy. I was in the Marine Corps and Aunt Alice used to ask me, Jimmy, you remember when you, because she could remember stuff too. And Aunt Fee. Jimmy, you remember when you get out on the hill? I said, yeah. I said, you remember? I said, clank, clank, clank. And then you remember and Booney Hall and all them used to come out there and Granddaddy, they get acting up. Granddaddy, whoo, he brought a tight hand. He'd really get on. I said, you remember when we was on Oak Street and he'd be killing the hogs? And I asked Uncle, is that hog dead? Uncle said, yeah, on me and Gene. And when we when we climbed over, he said, oink, oink, and me and Gene got hysterical. Uncle said, oh, Uncle was devilish, man. Granddaddy said, I told you. Because me and Gene was babies. I told you to leave them boys alone. Then he made them go over, and you know no teenage boys don't like that. Made them take me and Gene over in the field, McDivitt's, and they used to make them fake cars out of hay and make them play with them. He run Inky King, Booney Hall, John Williamson. There was somebody else. He run all them guys out there, and they better not do nothing. So you know you're so bad because Granddaddy knew all their dads. But they didn't like to get in trouble, boy. And then I remember Mom said, we used to walk down Mount Laura Road. And I was older. My mom had me by the hand. And she used to tell me, boy, at her young age, and Maya, I'm getting out of Mount Laura. I'm moving out of Mount Laura. I'm moving out of Mount Laura. I didn't know what my mother was talking about. But after I got older and we talked about it, I knew what she was talking about. And she would always say, because her mother died, I got to look out for my sisters and brothers. I promised my mother I'd look out for my sisters and brothers. She said, I got to get them out of that house because they can go to school and all that stuff. Instead of walking up there to Morristown High. So, boy, she moved. Mr. Bounds. Right there, lived on Church Street in Morristown. No, Mr. Bounds, a lot of y'all know from Morristown, Mr. Bounds owned a lot of land around there, a lot of property. You wouldn't think he had no, he always rode a bicycle. Always was on a bicycle. So my mother asked him, would he rent that house to her? And my mother told me this. He said to her, why not? Why shouldn't I rent it to her? And even as a little boy, I said he probably rented to mom because she was good looking. After I got up some age now, my mother and them didn't fake with me and put all that phony stuff on. And I figured out when I got up, well, you don't blame me. I'd have rented to her too. You know what I mean? But they had to clean it up real good because the lady that was in there, he said he had to get up. She believed in voodoo. And boy, when we went in, they had stuff. Flour, wasn't number flour, you know what I mean? Sprinkle from the door off, clear back to, oh Lord, man. But wait a minute. I know this from hearing, but I didn't know nothing about that stuff. I hear him talk, because everybody had chores. You couldn't get away with nothing. And boy, Mom fixed that house up so nice. Oh man, Aunt Minnie lived there, Uncle Bud, Uncle O's, Bunny, Aunt Dit. Even Aunt Dit, when she got married, lived there a while. And Uncle Kai used to sing, he's a rootin', tootin', shootin'. Who was that, Tom Mix or Gene Autry? Kai right now, Cowboy Joe. That's the first time I ever seen a black man sing. That's where I got that from, like in that Western music stuff. Oh man, there was so much class in that family. And the aunts of me looked out for me, but they had permission to spank us and whip us. I don't like that shit. And used to me lying. And they had to cook, they had different time. But Alice, being a young girl, she was something. Aunt Minnie told her one time, Alice, leave that cat alone. Alice, if anybody was at Aunt Alice's birthday we had in Merchantville, I said, Aunt Minnie, why didn't you tell everything? Jimmy, I couldn't tell all that. I said, Alice, she said, Alice, leave that cat alone. Man, Alice kept messing with that cat. I ain't never seen no cat in my life run the wall. That cat went after Alice and couldn't get her. He run up the wall. Down, we had a thing over the sink. Jumped on that thing. Now, he run up the wall. I don't think I was, how old was I? About 8 or 9, between 10. That cat scared me. And Aunt Minnie had the foresight to close that door. Man, that cat was at every... Only place he didn't run was to that hot cold stove. But when he come at Aunt Alice, I said, woo, he run the wall like he was, like this stuff you see in the movie. And he come at Aunt Alice and jumped and he missed her. Aunt Minnie was saying when she closed that door, Alice couldn't get out there fast enough. I told you, you know the Meekins women, they could tell you that thing. I told my mom and didn't know. I told you, because Granddaddy would say that stuff and Grandma, I told you to leave that cat alone. Oh man, Aunt Minnie, we went and sat in the dining room because Aunt Minnie was cooking. Whoo, at Alice, boy. And I used to look, man, she gets into everything because she was the youngest girl. But in those days you had to eat together. They would wait for you, but if you was late, and I'm telling you, and I mean this, don't mess with their brothers and the male boys in the Meekins family up there in Morristown, New Jersey. I used to tell people, don't mess with Bunny now. Don't mess, and it ain't Alice. I said, hey, Alice, you better leave Bunny alone. You know that boy's spoiled. I said, you better leave him alone. I said, all these Meekins boys are spoiled. But Uncle Bud and all of them, they used to say, mess with my brother. I said, oh, man. Or you couldn't mess with any of us boys. Then my mother, I got older and older. Oh, me and my brother would hammer you. Or what's the other hammer? The sledgehammer you. So my mother, them guys would say smart things. My mother was pretty though, I ain't used to lie. But I was nothing but a kid. And my mom used to tell me and my brother, get back in the house, I'll take care of this. I'll take care of this. And then one time, me and my brother went down the street, he had a hammer, and I had the sledgehammer. He said, Mom, we gonna hammer this dude. Ah, shut. I was gonna hit him in the kneecap. My brother was going, Jesus. My mom used to keep me, don't get into that stuff. I can handle it. You know, because when you're a long woman, people say smart shit. Excuse my language. Excuse my language. And then I remember one time, listen, then I ain't both stuff. This guy, I ain't gonna name his name. He dead and gone. He had sister and Vivian, Steven, and a bunch of girls. One of them old Yellow Brothers, you know what I mean? With his curly hair, you know what I mean? But he was a man. He had a, oh man, them girls, you know how girls are when they're young, they're 13 and shit. He had them, not bothering them, talking to him. Mom said, what is wrong with him? Mom went and got the axe. I said, oh, shut. I told my mom, you can't do that. Man, she was what? She was swinging that axe like a woodcutter in the mountains, cutting down trees, man. She went over there. She must have caught herself before she got over there. She just told my sister to come on back over there on the porch. She was going to split that dude's head open. She said, he ain't messing with my child. That's Mama's favorite word, child. When we lived on Beach, we had moved to Beach Street. But I had a paper route, and I learned a lot of the men on the paper route. Mr. Anderson, Mr. Wembley, who was a lawyer, Dr. Ashers, Mr. Adams, a lot of men. Even Mr. Wondolowski and Joe Wondolowski. Because I always try to use, I wasn't no punk, but I always try to use my manners that my mother gave me, but I would get crazy too. And then I had always had to work in that family. I had, my mother used to go to work. Some of this stuff is ahead of me, and some of us don't remember this. And she used to leave us with Miss Bellman, which lived right in back of Aunt Fee. And I used to tell Miss Bellman, I thought she was getting too strict on us. I tell her, I'll go over my aunts. But see, if you go over Aunt Fee's along here, and they run you back over Miss Bellman. Because my mother worked down the shore. You know, Kate, not Kate May, what is it? Yeah, Kate May. I can't remember some stuff now. Yeah, my mom worked down there in the summer, and she always did what did they call it? They didn't call it domestic work then, they called it maid and take care of them people, right? Then she got a job on the Pennsylvania Railroad. And black woman out there stopping white people in traffic. Oh man, they call her nigger and everything. So she said, my mom told me all this history now, I'm telling you. She said she went and asked the station master, would he help her and show her the lights and show her how to do this? And this is the word my mother used. She said she thought that cracker wasn't going to help her. She said it surprised her when he said, sure, why not? You know? And then everybody on the railroad, and I was up there to Aunt Fee's thing we gave her. And one of the kids, which I knew before he said, a guy younger than me, said, your mother, my mother got, when she went there, she was always advanced. She got 5 black people on there. She wasn't one of them scared, scuffling Negroes. She was always, I told her ahead of her time. She got Uncle Bud there, Adelaide Laws, Daniel, and a couple more black people, but they didn't stay there. She stayed there till she retired on that railroad. And then I used to have to go to school, but I was the oldest. Aunt Minnie and them was still there, but you still have responsibility. I used to have to get my mom's breakfast on the way to school, right? At first I'd go down there with her. She'd wake me up 3 o'clock in the morning. Because somebody had gotten hit in the head that worked there, and their eye knocked out, a white guy. So she took his shift. I used to could remember these guys' names, but I can't. I'm going to be honest, I can't remember them. So I'd have to get up, go. Then I'd go and get Sister and Carlos ready to go to school. And I'd go to school, and I had permission. I'd go and get her lunch. Take a break from school, go get her lunch, and then come back and go to school. But you have to remember, most of the time, it's still integrated. Most of the black teachers you go ask for the black principal, and they let you go. They knew what was up in the black community. And then Mrs. Wondolowski, sometimes she would fix Mom's dinner. Boy, because Mom would work 2 shifts sometimes. Man, I get so mad when I go down there to fixing that dinner. And but I'm scared to smart up because my mom would knock you to the deck. and Miss Wondolowski and them would fix Mom's dinner and feed them. But she had a good rapport. And I was thinking about it before you start talking to me, Wes, about this. You know, at them times you could take the test home, huh? Mm-hmm. That you put in a job. That's how my mom got the job. And I know all this for a fact because my mom told me. And what she didn't know in there, the teachers helped her, right? And then you take the test back, and then she would tell, you know, some Negroes just mess up everything. She would tell the rest of them how to do it and then do it, right? But she was well respected on the railroad with the engineers and all that. But then some of them people in Morristown, when she stopped the traffic, now she's had traffic tied up when there's a freight. And in the day she would have a stop sign, and she worked them double shifts. At night she had a red lantern. Man, I used to hear people call Mom so many niggers. It was nigger gal and all that. That's why I tell people now, no, you can't tell me nothing about them dudes. Oh, no. You talk all that stuff. And now I see, sometimes I say something to my sister. People ain't nothing but people. You believe that shit. People ain't nothing but people. You believe that nonsense. I said, you don't know what I know. I hear some of my cousins say that. I said, okay, you believe that. And then the chief of police, he used to come and ask Mom, I ain't talking about no rat now. He would lock up guys that got drunk, and the guys would tell. Gene and I used to talk about it. People don't believe stuff like that. Them younger kids come behind. He used to tell the guys, boy, most of them guys, brothers that got locked up, you better get me out here before morning. What? You better get me out here before morning. So the chief of police was a young guy there named Waters. He's about my mom's age. He went to school. Look, he come down there and said, Mary Lucy. He said, Charlie's up there raising saying about get him out. He got to drive Mrs. Mollentar. What's the guy's name that owned the... I can't forget his name. I thought about it the other day, that owned that big factory. And they had chauffeurs, right? Maids, chauffeurs, people live in. He said, Charlie kept telling, he knew Charlie tried to be drunk. Woo! He wasn't a time drunk. He graduated from college. A lot of black men been beat down but couldn't do nothing when they come back and all that stuff. He told my mom, I was down there just bought my mom dinner lunch. My mom said to him, she wasn't on the Tom Kiss ass. I tell you that. She said, well, who you work for?